Welkom bij aflevering 26 van InJazz Radio. Mijn naam is Kloet en vandaag heb ik weer allemaal muziek meegenomen die ik kreeg tijdens Jazzahead, de grootste jazzbeurs ter wereld, die plaatsvindt eind april in Bremen. Dit was muziek van de groep van Jacopo Theolus. Geen eigen compositie, het enige stuk op deze cd dat geen eigen stuk is van Jacopo, maar van Benny Golson en John Hendricks. Je hebt het wellicht herkend, I Remember Clifford. Maar voor de rest zijn het wel allemaal eigen composities. Ik geef je eerst even de bezetting van zijn groep. Jacopo Theolus zelf speelt trompet, flugelhoorn en hij is dus de componist. Livia de Romanis cello, Marco Taradei fagot, Vittorio Solimene piano en Rhodes, Stefano Zambon bas en Luca Caruso drums. En op één track, die hoor je zo meteen ook, Arianna Theolis vocals. Ik laat je nu de volgende stukken horen. Old Man's Tale, She Never Promised a Rose Garden, La Piccola Principessa en Timelapse of Climate Change. De muziek van de groep van Jacopo Theolus, hier in InJazz Radio.
sciogliersi dei ghiacci, la mente è felice nel vedere il colorato fiore della speranza e i soldati deporre le armi. Colgo la margherita per ricordare ai adulti di quando erano bambini e fargli posare il cappello per disegnare il boa che mangia l'elefante.
Dat was de muziek van Jacopo Theolis en zijn groep. En wil je meer informatie over die cd, dan kun je me gewoon een mail sturen, co@injazz.nl, co@injazz.nl. Ja, je luistert wellicht wekelijks naar deze editie van InJazz Radio, maar we hebben ook een maandelijkse internationale editie. En een van de belangrijkste platforms waarop dat wordt uitgezonden is de website onejazz.net. onejazz.net. Ga maar eens kijken, dat is een walhalla voor jazzprogramma's. En wij zijn trots dat we daarbij mogen staan. Een van de grote drijvende krachten is Chris Phillips. Hij maakt zelf ook programma's en ik kwam hem tegen bij Jazzahead en ik sprak met hem. En ik vroeg onder andere, hoe is One Jazz eigenlijk ontstaan? Maar hij begon met een aardig compliment.
Well, first and foremost, it's great to have InJazz Radio International on there, or even, the Dutch version would be great. But having the blessing of you doing it in English is amazing, because it gives us a really lovely perspective of the young scene, the new jazz that's coming out of the Netherlands. Although we're very close geographically, same with France, there's a huge cavern of understanding between the two scenes about who are forging ahead in each scene. Especially for us, French and Dutch scenes, we don't know that much about it, but it's great to get an insight. Mm-hmm. One Jazz is a radio station that myself and my colleague Jez Nelson, we've been working in radio together for 40 plus years. We decided to put a radio station together that we do things how we see it. So we are leading on new music, and we've been working in commercial radio, Jazz FM. Jez has been working on the BBC, Radio 3 for many, many years. But we found that the experience representing the music always seems to fall short. There's marginalizing us to the late nights, or within the parameters of daytime stuff, you're very limited on what you can actually do and say and play. So we wanted to create a global conversation about the music, and we thought the best way to do that is to launch an internet platform where everyone's connected. We make the whole thing really simple to just submit the shows and to be able to distribute that to listeners all over the world. So one thing, it's available globally, and the other thing, it is a global conversation about the music. Hence, having you on board and many others from Japan, Australia, America, around the UK, etc. And always looking for new contributors as well. So this is a project that was kind of started as a bit of a passion project. And then it got to the point where we felt, wow, we've really got to do something with this, So we launched it in May last year online, and we fund it ourselves. We've decided to set it up as a not-for-profit organization, so any income we bring in, it pays for the system, the platform. And we also want to get enough income in to be able to reinvest and do special projects with the platform. And eventually, obviously to maybe be able to help contributors with costs and fees and stuff eventually. But yeah, it's something we felt we had to do. So, if we want to listen to a 12-minute Alice Coltrane piece at lunchtime, we can.
Yeah. And the good thing is that I feel very proud if I look at the contributors list to see who's around me. Guts is one of them here from Jazzahead, the director, Don Was, to name a few. It's a great variety of people, but a thing that I really appreciate is that you also show a lot of trust in the people who contribute, because you never gave me a phone call and said, take song 3 out now.
We'll never do that. We'll never do that.
With song 3 you won't.
No, never going to tell people what music they should and shouldn't play. I mean, if a radio show suddenly deviates completely to the right or the left and it doesn't represent what we're about, we may say, look, maybe there's another place for you. But no, I mean, we're learning things from guys like you, that you submit your radio shows, and others like Gertz. There's music included in there that sometimes we don't see and we may not have heard, but it opens us up to new stuff. Mm-hmm. And this is the whole beauty of that conversation is, we're in a room together talking about the music and listening to other people talking about the music. And as you probably realize by now that this music comes from a really strong position of love for the music, love for the people that make it, and the love that you have for enjoying it. It's a very special art form that needs more platform. Yeah. There's plenty of creativity out there. I mean, I can't keep up with all the new music, And so we thought there's too much new music that's not even getting a look in anywhere, so we have to create something to be able to share that music on behalf of the artist, who we keep at the heart of the platform, and on behalf of the listener, who maybe hasn't realized until they listen to One Jazz how much great new music there is.
Yeah. And also what we do, if I may refer as we, is that by presenting, for instance, young artists in this matter, in this way, that a young artist from the Netherlands who is in the international version can then maybe send emails to British or other countries who are listening, send emails about who they are, that they want to play there, for instance. So we create like a new parallel universe for them to be active in.
Exactly. We're here sharing our love of the music, sharing contact details, sharing the metadata so everyone can see what's being played, and if there's something that's particularly appealing to a listener, they can get directly in touch.
Yeah. And
directly in touch with the musician, with the artist. And my ultimate goal is I hope that a jazz artist will make good living from a hookup through One Jazz. Maybe it's a festival booking or a series of festivals, something like that, which sometimes these things come from just hearing a record, and a promoter or a festival programmer will say, you know what, they're really good, let's get them on. And so to us the most important thing is to find the right music, to share the metadata so that everyone knows what it is, and they can explore and discover.
Yeah, and with the state of public broadcasting as it is in many countries, where jazz is, like you said, either very late at night or not existing at all, it's also dangerous if you keep the audience away from new stuff, because they cannot even make up their mind if they like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's speaking from a British perspective, jazz music has always been sort of seen as a weird and wonderful pursuit for sort of bearded old men who celebrate the kind of canon of a very old 20th century music. But in fact, we know that it's a living, breathing, ever-evolving art form that deserves to be out there on the bleeding edge, the cutting edge of culture. And culture, Chick Corea used to say that art and culture is essential for a healthy society, and the more that we can share things that people haven't heard before, that they may find appealing, the better. We all have our gateways into this music, and we're already getting good communications back from people saying they can't believe there's a radio station out there that is playing all this music, because you can find jazz radio stations all over the world, but we are absolutely sure that the music that we present on One Jazz and the people that we've invited to contribute along with that, it's kind of a unique blend, and it's come from a place of love, people who have a vested emotional interest in this music and wanting to share it, and just the joy of sharing it, and hopefully good things will come from that, and that's what we want.
And one of the things that I like is that the variety you just described, if you just look at the contributors and what they bring to the table, it's so versatile, it's such a great variety, and then having said that, the name One Jazz is extremely strong.
Yeah, I mean, I thought long and hard about a name, but it seemed like the name was actually, it found me. It is One Jazz, it's one conversation, it's one feeling about the music. And I might like different stuff to you, might like different stuff to Ruth Fisher or Jez Nelson, any of our colleagues. But at the end of the day, we're all in one conversation here and in one place about this music. And we didn't want to be too fluid about the music. Although there are deviations into more neo-soul things or avant-garde over there, essentially we feel like if you took the highway of jazz, we're the bus lane, we're driving the jazz bus in the jazz lane. And, that's the way we want to keep it. And we feel there's more than enough representation of other genres and other music elsewhere. So this is what we're here for, and we're trying to build this thing up. It's a slow build, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of love needed for it. But we're very excited. We're having conversations at the highest level with festivals and programmers, and we've been to New York, we've done London Jazz Festival, we're doing Love Supreme Festival, where we have our own stage now this year. We're here at Jazzahead, we're going to be at Firabi in the Balearics later this year, and the Glasgow Jazz Festival. So as you can see, even less than a year old, we're already having conversations at the highest level, which, I suppose that's because we've been doing this so long now that we fast-track that, which is great. We just needed to create more rooms in the house,
My last question is, you talked about the costs that it has to keep this going, but if I look at the website, people can contribute, they can make donations.
Yeah, you know, like in America, raising funds for public radio stations or non-commercial radio stations, although they're controlled, they are used to that, you know, and then they have commercial radio stations, but they use fund drives to raise enough money to continue with radio stations. In the UK, and particularly online, it's a very difficult thing to do, but we decided, look, people want to find a way to support this in some small way. So we have made it a possibility that you can make a small monthly donation or a large one if you want. And we're selling a little bit of merchandise. We're developing that side so that we can bring in income and we can support the radio station.
Yeah.
So, you know, please, if you feel like it's a great project and, you know, you feel like you can make a small donation, we'd be very, very grateful.
Yeah.
It all goes in the pot.
Yeah. I thank you for your time. We're going to have a great day here again at Jazzahead and meet a lot of new people. Thanks also on behalf of all the musicians and composers. Thank you for supporting our InJazz Radio station, and I will do my best never to have a track 3 that you will delete.
Or 4. I will never delete any of your tracks, man.
Okay.
No.
Na het gesprek met Chris Phillips van onejazz.net hoorde je het stuk Out of Reach van het Epoxy Quartet van hun cd Recollection. En ook die cd kreeg ik tijdens Jazzahead. Ik geef je even de bezetting. Koen Gijsman piano, Kim Jeger cello, Thomas Rokonen drums, Casper Rietkerk sopraansax en altsax, Martijn van Ditshuizen altsax en basklarinet. De tijd die ik nog over heb, die besteed ik aan een aantal stukken van een cd die je al eerder hoorde hier, namelijk Ephraim S.W. Between Two Worlds. De bezetting: Suzanne Veneman trompet, Daan Herberg piano, Hendrik Muller bas, Ephraim Schulz-Wackerbarth drums, Matthäus Polawski gitaar, Tsiruya van der Bos viool, Bram Faber altviool en Carlijn van Wijk cello. En dat is ook de laatste muziek van deze editie van InJazz Radio. Voor meer informatie, co@injazz.nl is mijn e-mailadres. En mede namens Mark van Schaik en het hele Buma Cultuurteam, dank je voor het luisteren. Mijn naam is Kloet. Tot de volgende InJazz Radio. Thank you.